I want to just recap what's going on in the world today. Okay?
The look on your face kind of tells a big story right now.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But I want to recap some of the important things that are going on in the world today. One, and hopefully we'll get to a lot of these things. Some of them we will, some of them we don't. Especially when Paul is producing, we just talk and talk, and then we don't get to everything. But that's all right. So one thing that I definitely want to talk about is there are more people calling for what is called universal basic income. That is where, because they feel like robots are going to take all of our jobs, that we'll have to give everyone some kind of basic income from the government, everyone, so that they will be able to live. Quality things will be cheaper because robots will be doing it, but they'll need universal basic income. I'm going to talk about how that is a terrible idea, at least in my opinion. That's going on. Number two, the Secretary of Defense, General Mad Dog Mattis, came out today and he said he is shocked how unprepared the military is. For, if we had to go on an eventual war against another country, he thinks our military preparedness, mostly because of sequester, but of other reasons as well, is completely unprepared, and he was actually shocked by it. Then there was a report out in the National Review that talked about how our Air Force is totally outdated and not ready for the future. So there's that going on. Number three, Obamacare. According to Politico, 2 million people have fell off Obamacare coverage rolls through mid-March. 2 million people they could not afford their premiums, so they fell off the rolls. What else is going on? There's a ton of other stuff going on as well. Oh yeah, speaking of Obamacare, you have the Republicans in the Senate who are basically doing this behind closed doors. They're basically not wanting to debate. They're afraid what the debate's going to do. They're doing it behind closed doors. Another thing that I found interesting, I can't wait to get Paul's reaction on this one. According to a new poll, and hopefully we'll get to all of this stuff. We'll probably get to this in the second hour. According to a new poll, a majority of millennial kids think it would be okay if the government decided that it was some kind of child abuse and took away your kid if you did not let them change their gender. If they decided that, let's see, let me get the poll. Poll shows nearly half, so not a majority, but nearly half of millennials, my generation, are open to government removing children from homes that won't support transgender transitioning. So that's going on as well. And then, of course, if you live in Orlando, we've had the Pulse ceremonies, and once again, the debate has mostly been about hatred towards gays and not much else in terms of that. Not much on the radical Islamic threat. Then you have what's going on in Britain, another big topic, because basically the more socialist candidate in Britain and the more socialist party in Britain was able to get a lot of power after the terrorist attacks. And they found out that it was because of young people decided that they wanted socialism. So all of that is going on. And there's a lot more to this as well. All of that is going on. All of these important things we need to discuss. I didn't even get into the fact that Trump has a new plan for air traffic control, privatizing air traffic control. That's a debate we need to be having. Didn't get a lot of attention. There's also a plan to promote apprenticeships in business so people could get more job experience. Trump put out a plan for that. That hasn't got a lot of attention. So all of these things are going on in the world. All of these things I think are very important. All of these things really need to be talked about, really need to be debated, really need to be discussed because they really affect the future of our country. And what does everyone care about today? They care about Trump's cabinet meeting, where some people thanked him for the opportunity. Or they care about Jeff Sessions, who testified to Congress. And guess what? He said there's no Russia collusion. What do you expect him to say? You think he's going to come out and say, yep, the Russians got us. They got us. I'm in bed with them.
I was hoping you wouldn't ask me to testify. So that I wouldn't have to tell you that all this time, all you had to do was ask me.
Yes. So, and then there's that. And then, of course, there's the Julius Caesar play where they assassinate Trump at the end. These are the important things that apparently are worth discussing. None of those other things that I talked about in the beginning are really on the forefront. Everybody's leading with Sessions. Everybody's leading with Trump's cabinet meeting and all of this other junk. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I am your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason.
It really, really, really is.
And I've decided maybe, just maybe, one of my jobs, and I don't know how I'm going to possibly do this, is to stop the hyperbole, or to fight against the hyperbole that is out there. Because everywhere I look these days is full of hyperbole. And it's on both sides. And it's very annoying. And we're going to get to a lot of that. Another thing that hopefully we'll get to later in the show, another thing that's all about hyperbole, Megyn Kelly's got a new show, and she decides to interview Alex Jones. And a lot of people, now you have sponsors pulling out of her show. You have Sandy Hook charity saying they won't let her speak for a charity. And all of this stuff because she merely did an interview with the man. And we'll play some of the interview later. And it's not a friendly interview. It's not, oh, I think Alex Jones is just the bestest. We're best buds now. He's great. And the fact of the matter is, whether I agree Alex Jones is nuts, and we'll go over that. But he's got millions of listeners. And his website, InfoWars, has press credentials in the White House. And it's becoming more and more influential in our world. So to attack Megyn Kelly for merely interviewing this guy who is influential, too influential really, is just more of this hyperbole, more of this overreaction that is existing in the world today. And it's very, very annoying. So we're going to go over some of this stuff, and I want to talk about the important issues of today. We're going to really talk about it because especially the first thing I'm really going to get into is this idea for universal basic income. There was a great piece in Investors Business Daily that talked about the problems with it, and I really agree with it. And it's something Paul and I have talked about before. And I think it's more and more of a possibility that it's going to happen. And it's more and more of a problem. But let's first start with this stupid controversy over the cabinet meeting with Trump. So Trump has his first official cabinet meeting. Okay? Now, the real criticism that you should have about Trump's cabinet meeting is the fact that it's just started now. He's had his first one. He's been in office for months now, and he just had his first one. That's the real criticism. Months after, 3 months later than Obama in his first term. But no, that's not what everyone cares about, apparently. So, Paul, if you can go ahead and play the first piece of audio of the cabinet meeting that everyone's talking about, and then we'll play the reaction, and then I'll talk about how this is just so blown out of proportion.
You sound so excited about this.
It's just so blown out of proportion. But go ahead, play it.
Thank you, Mr. President, and just the greatest privilege of my life is to serve as Vice President to the President, keeping his word to the American people.
Alex? Mr. President, I'm privileged to be here, deeply honored, and I want to thank you for keeping your commitment to the American workers.
I can't thank you enough for the privilege that you've given me and the leadership that you've shown.
I want to thank you for getting this country moving again. and also working again.
On behalf of the entire senior staff around you, Mr. President, we thank you for the opportunity and the blessing that you've given us to serve your agenda and the American people, and we're continuing to work very hard every day to accomplish those goals.
Okay, maybe the last one was a little weird when he says blessings. And you know, I'm okay. I think Saturday Night Live will probably get a good bit out of this. I'm okay with that part of it, comedy and everything, that part of it. But once again, the reaction is worse, is almost just as bad as the actual event. So go ahead and play cut 2 for me. This was Mika Brzezinski on Morning Joe. They were reacting to this.
It was I heard that this morning. Oh.
Yeah. Am I allowed to say that was kind of sick? Or is that over the skis?
You know, the thing is,
that was
Mika
sick.
and I.
So, yeah.
Sick.
That was sick.
It was sick.
And then we go to, I don't even know who this was, some lady on CNN, some pundit they have a million pundits now. She reacts to this. You know, she was on with Wolf Blitzer, and she reacts to it, and this is what she said.
It was a bit cringeworthy, to say the least. It reminds me of the opposite reason as to why my parents... It was a bit cringeworthy, to say the least. It reminds me of the opposite reason as to why my parents...
Oh, did the audio get cut short?
It was a bit cringeworthy, to say the least. It reminds me of the opposite reason as to why my parents brought me to this country from the former Soviet Union. I mean, their leaders were forced to do that. The difference here is they're not forced to do that. And you could see how uncomfortable the cabinet was in having to dole out these accolades. And it was something that you don't do or extol upon a 5-year-old, much less, the President of the United States.
So... she compares it to the Soviet Union. And this is why I left the Soviet Union, so we wouldn't have to do this.
That's the reason. That's the reason she left.
And I'm just like, y'all make me defend Trump, is what I always have to say. So this is what happened. I understand we can make fun of it or whatever, and Reince Priebus saying the blessing things is a little much. But I guarantee you, stuff like this happens at every first cabinet meeting. The difference is, I guarantee it, okay? When you have a meeting like this and you're with the President of the United States and you go around, I guarantee you the people are saying, thank you, Mr. President, for giving me this opportunity to serve the people. I'm sure it happens. I'm sure it happens in other places as well. The difference is, and I actually went back and watched Obama's first cabinet meeting, or at least what they televised of it. I think what really happened here is, usually, at least in the Obama one, they didn't televise the part where they went around and had everyone speak. It was just Obama speaking. Yeah. I think Trump was saying, okay, this will be a good opportunity. It'll make us look good if I go around and let everyone say something. And it might give them the opportunity to say something as well, and they'll be happy I gave them the opportunity to do it. That's probably what happened, and they went on and they said, thank you for this opportunity. Okay, that's it. And there's some on the right who are bashing Trump for this just as much on the left, and I just think, I'm just like, come on, people, can we calm down a little bit here? Can we focus a little bit here? This is not the Soviet Union. He's not a dictator forcing.
Are you kidding me?
These
are the United States of SSSR.
Apparently. So that was just the first example I saw. And it was one of those things where I would read the headline, and everybody had it today. And I would read the headline, and because of the headlines, I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be really bad. I'm thinking this is going to be the worst. This is going to really rip apart Trump and everything and go with the whole narrative. And then I watch it, and I'm like, that was it? And that's how I react to so many things nowadays. Where I'll watch something, and I'm like, that was it? This is what we're all going crazy over? Really? 407-916-5400. Text to 23680. I just wanted to point that out. Calm down, everyone. I guarantee you that happens at cabinet meetings all the time, the first cabinet meetings. I guarantee you it happens in office buildings when the boss is there and you say, thank you for the opportunity for letting me speak and yada, yada, yada. This is not Trump. I understand Trump's an ego. He has a big ego. I understand people in his cabinet, probably like to praise him because Trump likes that. But let's focus just a little bit here. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. We're going to get into the important issues next. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you miss any of the show, you can download the Beyond Reason podcast on iTunes. The voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason is back now.
Yes, welcome back to the show, everyone. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. Like it said, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. The voice of reason in a world that is hyperbole. I'm just going to say that. It's just the world of hyperbole is out there. So I appreciate y'all listening. If you miss any of the show, you can catch the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. We're on till 10 p.m. tonight. Woo! And we have a lot of different stuff to discuss. We're going to get into some cultural things later in the show. And I hope we'll get responses maybe from some Christian women. Because there's an article I read in PJ Media that talked about how maybe a lot of Christian women feel that the modern feminist movement has kind of, what's the word? Made Christian women feel ostracized. The modern feminist movie.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that. And I posted that on Facebook. And we actually got some interesting responses to that, so I want to get to that as well. But I want to talk about first universal basic income. And I'm curious people's reaction on this. Now, believe it or not, the idea for universal basic income, and this is being pushed a lot more. I mean, Elon Musk came out, and he said he believes because automation will take so many jobs that the good news is resources will be a lot more available, but there will be less jobs. So the only solution will be universal basic income. Now, when someone like him says that, Elon Musk, one thing that he's actually saying there is that they're not going to have jobs. So that they're going to need this money because they won't be able to find jobs. So it's not even like this idea is to supplement their income. This is literally to make sure they have an income. So you will have a lot of people in this country, according to their theories that we will need this, getting paid for not working. I don't know about you, but I feel like that's not a good idea. Now, believe it or not, the idea for universal income was first really floated out there by a conservative, by a more libertarian economist, Milton Friedman. But his idea was that universal income would replace welfare. So you would get rid of all of the welfare programs, and you would get rid of all of the entitlement programs, and you would replace it with just cash, with just money. So anyone, instead of getting food stamps or Social Security or Medicare or any of that stuff, they would just have this universal basic income, and it could replace the welfare system. That was the original idea. But now we're getting to the point where people are saying we need universal basic income for everybody because there won't be enough jobs out there. And I think this is a very, very troubling thing for the future.
What's wrong? It would just pay everybody to exist.
There you go.
Isn't that what we're supposed to do?
Yeah, there won't be any incentive to produce anything.
No, that's what the robots are for, Mike.
It would be like, I do remember an episode of The Jetsons.
Yeah.
Where they were like in a military service for a while.
My finger's getting tired pushing this button already.
Yeah, and they made them do like grunt work as a punishment, to like scrub the halls or something.
Yeah.
And then for them, that was pushing a button to have the robots do the grunt work.
Yep.
So I guess that's what they're thinking. But I have to tell you, it bothers me, one, that this is being pushed so much. Why Silicon Valley wants to push this so much, I don't know. But I honestly believe that it's not going to be as necessary as people say.
No, I don't think so either.
I understand the argument. I understand the argument in terms of technology. I understand that new technology could have a lot of job displacement, could cause a lot of uncertainty, but believe it or not, it will also create a lot of new production. Now, there's a piece here in Investors Business Daily that actually points it out really well, and I wanted to read some of it and see what you all thought. It says, in recent weeks, the idea of universal basic income has shown surprising popularity across the political spectrum, from the left to the right. So me being against it, everyone will hate me, so I'm getting used to that by now, actually. The only real question is why, since it's such an awful idea. I happen to agree. For the left, the superficial case for universal basic income, also called guaranteed income, is that not everyone can compete in today's high-tech advanced economy. With the advent of robots, automation, and stuff, there will be job losses. Conservatives wanted to end welfare, as I mentioned before. These might sound tempting, he says, and reasonable, but they are profoundly flawed. He says, start with the first idea, that automation is going to destroy work as we know it. He said that's likely not true. He says, yes, some jobs are vulnerable, especially low-skilled manual jobs, as some recent studies have pointed out. But past experience shows that while investments in new technology cost some workers their jobs, those investments have always led to more jobs overall, not fewer. He says when businesses automate to boost productivity, they can cut their prices, thus increasing the demand for products, which in turn requires more workers. There was a report out there, for instance, notes that productivity from automation over the next 50 years should yield gains of 0.8% to 1.4% a year, roughly twice the gains from the internet revolution. Where productivity rises, jobs follow. So that's his point. I think it's an interesting point. I also think it will be easier to start your own business. Because think about this, for instance. When you're starting in your own business, what's the hardest thing to do? Well, you have labor costs, but now we have automation. So when you start your own business, you won't have to worry about labor costs as much. But then you have the cost of the goods and services that you're providing. You have overhead cost. Imagine how much automation is going to cut down overhead costs. A lot. I often think about the idea of 3D printing. I think eventually it will be very easy to get your own 3D printer. Imagine if you're a creative person in your house and you have an idea to make something with your 3D printer and sell it. It will be a lot easier for you to do that now because you will be able to manufacture it in your own house and then sell it to other people, for instance. I think there are a lot of examples like that are going to be out there. Now, the problem with this, and I don't know if you agree with this, Paul, I'm sure you do actually, is that means we will need people who are creative. That means the next generation will have to be creative. We will not, we kind of want to raise our kids to be worker bees. We teach them code or we teach them to be worker bees in the whole country as a whole. I don't think that's going to work for the future. I think they're going to need to be creative. They're going to need to participate in the information age or the creative age. And they're going to be able to need to have skills to do different things. But I don't think we're teaching our kids to do that. That could be an issue.
I was just talking about this the other day, and I made a Facebook post about it, actually. I was talking about how if your children are middle school age or younger, and you're trying to get them focused in on STEM teaching, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, you're too late. Yeah. You are literally too late. It's time to get your children. Yeah, it's time to get our children that are middle school age and under focused on leadership qualities. Because those are going to be the jobs of their generation. Somebody to lead these smaller workforces into these realms that we've already established with all of the STEM teaching that other countries have been doing that we're just now catching up to.
Now imagine this then. So you're saying we're going to need leaders. You're saying we're going to need creative thinkers. You're saying we're going to need innovators, basically. How? Now imagine what universal basic income, paying people to do nothing, basically, will affect that mindset. Will that be good for the mindset of a country that needs leaders?
Oh, it'll completely ruin it, of course.
That would need creative thinkers?
Yeah, absolutely not.
What incentive would you have to be a leader?
None. Absolutely none.
Exactly right.
The most you could aspire to would be worker bee.
Exactly.
Yeah. And
yet, they wouldn't even be worker bees. They would just be bees, I guess.
They would just be bees.
What are bees without working? I don't know.
They're just bugs. That's what they are.
They're just cockroaches at that point. Scavengers at that point. We want to create a country of scavengers that scavenge off the free government money and just float. I just think this is a very, very dangerous idea.
You know, it's interesting that you brought up Elon Musk as being one of the proponents of this, because I used to have great respect for him till I found out most of his companies are making zero money whatsoever. It's all based off of investments and based off of
subsidies,
government subsidies. That's it.
Yep.
That's where all of his money has come from.
Yep. You are actually, I mean, that's why he's big on the climate change stuff, because he makes a ton of money off of that.
A ton of money.
You know, one of the best, when you talk about Elon Musk, one of the best things that was pointed out about him, you know, Tesla came out and they're considered the most valuable car company in the country right now because of their stock price being so high, the most valuable car company in the country. So why are we subsidizing them?
Exactly.
We are now, think about that. The government is directly subsidizing the richest car company in America.
Yep.
How does that make sense? And then that guy is telling us we need universal basic income. How is this going to be good for the future?
I mean, he's creating cars that drive themselves, so we won't even need to get a ride to work.
We won't.
We need more taxis.
We won't need to. When we already talked about the passive generation, how that generation doesn't want to actually do anything. Imagine where you're getting money for not doing anything.
Yep.
That's what they're proposing. And then you pointed out something to me, Paul, that actually I hadn't thought about until you pointed it out. Imagine if what the businesses that are hiring are going to do with this.
Oh, yeah.
They're not going to pay you as much.
No way.
Because
why would they?
Why would I pay you? You're getting money from the government.
Exactly.
The incentive,
you are essentially a waitstaff person now.
Yeah. So,
you know?
So the incentive to pay your employees more is gone. The incentive to produce, create, innovate, and be leaders is gone. And then you have inflationary. It would obviously increase inflation. Because if it were that easy just to give people money, governments it would already be done.
Hello,
we could just give everyone $1 million, and then that would solve the world's problems. But that's not how it works.
If that was the case, we would have just gave everybody a house in the housing crisis.
Yep.
There were plenty of houses to go around. We could have just given them away.
Exactly right. But that's not how a world of production and scarcity and resources. That's not how it works. So I wanted to point this out because this is one of those issues where we should be talking about it. We should be discussing it.
We can't talk about it. We spent too much time talking about it already.
I know. I haven't even mentioned what happened in the Sessions testimony.
You didn't even say the word Sessions yet.
What am I thinking?
Jeez,
I don't even know.
Man.
407-9.
You're no good at this.
407-916-5400. Text to 23680. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you heart Beyond Reason Radio, listen to the Beyond Reason Radio podcast on iHeartRadio. Just download the iHeartRadio app and search Beyond Reason Radio. This is Orlando's Smart Talk Radio. Beyond Reason Radio continues now.
Yes, and this is the show where we're actually going to talk about the important issues of the day. 407-916-5400. Text to 23680. There was something that came up earlier this week that actually got me thinking, and I wanted to get Paul's take on this. I wanted to see if anyone else wanted to weigh in as well. You can call 407-916-5400 or text to 23680. And that is, I know we shouldn't really, I don't know if I should be talking about this, but I think it's actually very important. It's something we should be aware of. And it's not so much the future of the Republican Party, even though that's a very important subject, but it's the future of the Democrat Party. Because there actually is still a pretty big divide in that party. There's a pretty big divide in the Democrat Party. A lot of people, right now, they're uniting on anti-Trumpism. Let's get Trump. And it's helping fire up their base. And it's helping get people, they think it's going to get people out for the midterms to vote Democrats. But really, that's all they have right now. They're a very divided party. And so this idea that they're just going to sail through victory in 2008 and 2020, it's not as set in stone as you all think, as they want to think it is. They just have the anti-Trumpism right now, and that's working for them right now, but it's not going to work forever.
Yeah, it's not going to last, and that's the thing they don't understand.
Exactly.
2 years is a long time to try to hold on to that bone.
Well, especially since before he was inaugurated, they were out with the outrage.
Yeah.
So people get sick of the outrage. It happened under Obama. I mean, the Republicans were able to use it to get a lot of seats. There's no doubt about it. But Obama still won in 2012. So it didn't work completely. And then especially after 2012, the outrage, people got sick of the outrage. They just tuned out. That could very well happen with Trump. I know Trump is very good at keeping attention on himself and putting his foot in his mouth and making it even worse. But the Democrats are going to need more than just outrage against Trump. So but the real divide in the Democrat Party is you have the Joe Biden type Democrat.
Uncle Joe.
Oh, yeah, the Uncle Joe doesn't hate capitalism, but, wants more government involvement, wants to be for the worker, unions, and all that stuff. And then you have the Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren Democrat. And especially Bernie Sanders, who is the socialist wing of the Democrat Party. And, Bernie Sanders, he actually said this not too long ago, and I have audio here, where he talked about the problems in the Democrat Party, and he thinks the Democrat Party actually needs to change. This is what he said.
9 years, Democrats have lost almost 1,000 legislative seats in states all across this country. Today, in almost half of the states in America, Democratic Party has almost no political presence at all. Now, if that's not a failure, if that's not a failed model, I don't know what a failed model is. Democratic Party needs fundamental change.
So Bernie Sanders is out there, and he is saying that the Democrat Party needs fundamental change. And you know what he means by that? He means they need to go more to the left. I mean, that's who Bernie Sanders is. There's no bones about it. He is a leftist. He says he's a democratic socialist. He wants us to be much more like Europe. Elizabeth Warren's the same way. And these are the leaders right now of the Democrat Party. When the media goes to find a leader of the Democrat Party, they'll go to Chuck Schumer, but they're going usually to Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren.
Yep.
So there's the divide, and then there's the Joe Biden. Now, I heard a cut from Charles Krauthammer on Fox News, and he has a take on this. He actually thinks that would be doom for the Democrat Party. He thinks the Democrat Party becoming more socialist would actually spell their future doom. I'm not sure I agree with them. This is what he said.
The left has the energy. They also have the leadership. They have him. They obviously have Senator from Massachusetts, Warren. And, they're the ones who are leading the conversation. But, if they want to go that way, that's Kool-Aid. This country is historically, for 250 years, has not taken kindly to socialism. That is essentially what he is offering. They think it's their moment. They're going to go, for example, I think, for single payer in health care, which is a fairly radical idea. And if they pursue the Sanders route, particularly if they have another party, a People's Party, that will destroy the Democrats, and it will give a very unsteady and split Republicans a new lease on life, which is what they really need. This is very self-destructive, which means it's very capital D democratic.
So he thinks that if the Democrat Party goes more towards the social swing, because historically we haven't been socialist, he thinks that that'll be doomed for the Democrat Party.
He's thinking like an old guy.
You make a very good point.
He's thinking like an old guy.
Because 50 years ago, I might have agreed with him. Although we forget about Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR.
Yep.
FDR was very radical for the time. He was very much a lot more socialist for the time, but he was able to use a crisis, an economic crisis, to put the country more in that direction. But all you have to do to really be worried about this and to maybe be more concerned about this than Charles Krauthammer is look at the polls. And right now, well, in the last election, Bernie Sanders in the primaries got more under 30 voters than Clinton and Trump combined. And then you look at what's going on in Europe. Europe just had the Labour Party just had a major defeat in Europe. And that is because young voters, it says Corbyn's surprisingly competitive showing was fueled by young voters who rallied behind Labour by a whopping 34-point margin. Now, Europe's always going to be more left than the United States, but we're following right behind. And I think, and then you have polls that show that millennials have a higher opinion of socialism than capitalism. There was actually there was a YouGov poll that came out last year that said 52% of millennials expressed a favorable view of capitalism compared to 29. Well, that was overall. Let me go to the millennials. Democrats rated socialism better. Here we go. Under 30, it turns out that 43% of people under 30 favored socialism over capitalism. 32% favored capitalism over socialism. That's people under 30. So if you're Charles Krauthammer, you're looking at the overall polls, you're seeing that, yes, 52% of the whole country favors capitalism. You're like, okay, yes, this will be doomed for the Democrat Party. And maybe in the immediate future, this will be doomed for the Democrat Party. But then when you look at the polls that show that under 30, 43% show that they have a favorable view of socialism. And then we have what we just talked about in the last segment, where more and more people want a universal basic income, which is a very socialist idea.
Very, very socialist idea.
There's no doubt about it. And then you have the cultural aspects as well, because more and more young people are not believing in God, for instance. And the fact is, that was a big reason why a lot of people back in the day were against Marxism, because Marxism was specifically against religion, especially in those countries. Well, if you take that out of it, you're having much more young people, unfortunately in my generation, who are more favorable to someone like a Bernie Sanders.
And here's the other thing. You look at the aspect that you have in that generation, in that under 30, you have many more people who feel like they have an association to socialism. Especially, all you got to do is say student loans. That's it. Once you say the word student loans, that is it.
Well, and a lot of them have been misinformed about what has caused the economic crisis and all that stuff.
Well, that's what I was going to say. And they think they have an idea of what capitalism is, but they really don't. You know, and so the skewed perspective of what capitalism is and the direct association to socialism, I don't think it spells doom at all.
Yeah, and I think it's troubling. Now,
you're talking about, make a quick point. You're talking about Bernie Sanders, who you want to talk about people laughed at Trump when he announced he was going to run for office? People laughed loudly at Bernie Sanders when he announced that he was going to run for office. The way he even announced, people were laughing at it. He was like, okay, I got other stuff to do, but I just want to let you know I'm running for president, you know? And he almost beat Hillary.
Yeah, that's very true. Now, part of that was because Hillary was so awful.
True.
But I think there was more to it. Now, there was an interesting quote here from Ben Shapiro who was talking about this, and he had an interesting take that I wanted to point out before we go to the break. He said, people want meaning. Economics doesn't provide it, but causes do. Bernie appears to have a cause. So does Corbyn. As economists Daniel Yergin and some other economists, I don't know, stated back in 1998, when it appeared that the global capitalist consensus was unshakable, a system that takes the pursuit of self-interest and profit as its guiding light does not necessarily satisfy the yearning in the human soul for belief in some higher meaning beyond materialism. Few people would die with the words free markets on their lips. He says the West failed to teach its children meaning. The children found their own meaning in Marxism. And so we appear ready to re-embrace the horrors of the past unless we get to work teaching young Westerners that they are a part of a fight for liberty and freedom and responsibility rather than transformative, crushing redistributionism.
First of all, you don't hear the words liberty and freedom outside of conservative circles ever. Ever. You never hear those words outside of conservative circles. So
unless you're talking about gay rights or something.
It's something that needs to be taught. But I also look at this standpoint, and it's a pretty accurate statement in that thing that you just read. Because I think about if Bernie wasn't 145 years old, right, and he had the opportunity to do what people used to do in politics, run for president 2 or 3 times, he'd probably win the third time around. Put Elizabeth Warren on his ticket that third time around, and they're both not 95 and 72 collectively, you know? He'd probably win.
So I have an interesting... I'm going to expound further upon this in a minute. 407-916-5400, text to 23680. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
It would be beyond reason not to listen to Yaffee on your TuneIn Radio app. Download the app today and search Beyond Reason Radio. The conscience in your ear telling you the difference between right and wrong. Yaffee is back on the air.
So during the last election, when we had Trump versus Hillary Clinton, I had made this point, I still believe it today, because this really is the debate for the future, that the election that we really should have been having, and the debate we really should have been having, was not between Trump and Hillary Clinton, but is between Rand Paul and Bernie Sanders. Because really, those are the two paths that we're on right now. And we'll have to come to a point where we make that decision, where we start really going in the direction of socialism, because the forces that are pushing us in that direction are very strong. But you also have, and I've noticed there are a lot of young people that do support the Rand Paul aspect. But why is Rand Paul so successful at getting them on board? Because he talks to them about we talked about liberty and freedom and how, you can't just fight for free markets, but it has to be bigger than that. It has to be meaning. And you can find meaning in liberty and freedom. Rand Paul has been very good, and there have been others, but Rand Paul has been very good at talking about how that can go in line for the future of the next generation. And that's a debate we should be having, and we're not having it. And if the Republican Party doesn't wake up to that, and we think, Bernie Sanders will never get the votes, we're going to lose in the future, and it's not going to be good. Oh, that was a fast hour of Beyond Reason Radio. We have one more hour to go, a lot more things to discuss. I do want to get into the Alex Jones controversy with Megyn Kelly, so we'll get into that and much more. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
So well, that nothing comes from indifference. I look at
So a 22-year-old American college student has been released from North Korea after 17 months of detainment. 3 other Americans still remain in prison by Kim Jong-un's dictatorial regime. He was taken into custody January 2nd, 2016, At the time, he appeared healthy and conscious. This week, he was returned back home in a coma. He was originally sentenced to 15 years of hard labor for taking down a North Korean propaganda poster from the hotel at which he was staying. A couple things I want to say about this.
You got to know you can't do stuff like that when you're in North Korea.
First off, who sends their kid to North Korea?
That's a good question.
What college student visits North Korea? Second, anytime you think at all that we are anywhere close to being oppressed in this country.
Yeah, exactly.
Just remember that there was a kid sentenced to 15 hard years of labor because he stole a sign. I just wanted to give a little perspective on things. We always point out that we're the most incarcerated country and all that stuff. True, but we don't send people to 15 years of hard labor.
Yeah, the next time you want to call a politician a communist, remember that.
Yes. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, the voice of reason in a world that is beyond reason. I actually hope this kid is all right. I remember how upset he looked when the sentencing came down and all that stuff, and I would have been just like him. I would have been freaking out. I don't know what I would have been doing. But I would not have gone to North Korea on some kind of vacation trip.
Not at all.
In the first place. So I don't know why anyone would think, especially after this, if you go, you're just suicidal.
Unless you're going on a missions trip, which I would still not advise.
No, I wouldn't either.
Yeah.
For a mission trip, no. But when you're there, don't steal a sign.
Please.
It's not like the police are like, that's a joke. Nope, 15 years of hard labor.
Jeez.
And does anyone else picture the hard labor? They're like in a chain with a ball and chain, just with a pike.
They came back rocks. In a coma, man.
Are they just hitting? I just picture them hitting rocks with a pike for 15 years.
Jeez,
it's crazy. All right. So I just a side note. I just wanted to point that out, how crazy that is. I appreciate y'all joining me. I just wanted to let you know we are on until 10 p.m. tonight. If you're listening to the live show here on News Radio 102.5 WFLA. And I mean, catch the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. We've been on since 8 p.m. tonight. And we talked a lot of politics in the first hour. And something that's created a lot of controversy today is the fact that Megyn Kelly, she's got a new show on NBC. And I just feel like now everyone is just looking, everyone's just looking for reasons to hate Trump. I'm starting to feel that way about Megyn Kelly.
Oh man, they've had those reasons since she left Fox,
and it's not even, and it's from both sides. Seems like everyone's just looking for a reason to hate Megyn Kelly.
Well, yeah, she's a liberal rat now, or she's a conservative rat who's just using the liberal station to make more money.
Yeah, Mark Ruffalo, the Hulk guy who plays the Hulk, came out today and he says they need to stop hiring white conservatives on NBC. He came out and said that. Because, NBC News is the bastion of white conservatism. So there you go. But she's in a little bit of hot water because she decided to interview Alex Jones. And the reason why this fascinates me is two reasons. One's I don't really understand the outrage here on her interviewing, because the fact of the matter is, yes, Alex Jones is a nut job. Yes, Alex Jones.
Certified.
Yes. I'm starting, although a lot of people are thinking, and I'm starting to think that it's all fake, that a lot of what he does is a show, that he really doesn't believe in all this stuff.
Yeah, I could see that. It's making him money.
I think somebody was pointing out in a court case or something where they actually used that in his defense.
Yeah.
That it's all a show. And I think there's probably a lot of truth to that. But the fact of the matter is, and I know because we get callers that call the morning show and my show and everything who tell me to listen to Alex Jones and to go to InfoWars. And he is, whether we like it or not, he is pretty influential in some circles. Now, he's not as influential as, say, The Five or Bill O'Reilly or something like that.
Yeah.
But he still has press credentials in the White House, he still interviewed Donald Trump, who is now president, on one of his shows. And Infowars.com still gets a lot of hits, and he makes a ton of money off of it. So the fact is, if you're going to interview brutal dictators, which journalists do all the time.
All the time.
I mean, her first interview was with Vladimir Putin, and no one said, you shouldn't interview him. And you're going to interview murderers. They interviewed Charles Manson and all that stuff. You can't be mad at Megyn Kelly for doing it. And it wasn't a fluff piece. In fact, let's play some of the audio here. They released some of the audio from the interview. And just so you know, the backlash that has been out is first, J.P. Morgan Chase removed their ads from her show, which I'm also sick of these business boycotts trying to get advertisers to leave shows. I hate it all.
Well,
I don't care what side it is.
The new business.
I hate it.
There's a new business of grabbing together the business boycott.
When I watch a TV show and I see an ad, I don't relate the ad to the TV show unless the host is endorsing that product.
Right. Uh-huh.
Most people, I think, separate it. They see the ad, it's just that product trying to sell their product.
Yeah.
It's not
Selling
aligned
some time
with the show. Use a business because you like their product or service. If you don't like their product or service, don't use their business. If we all took that approach, it would just be a much better place, I think. But that's just
You're asking for too much, my friend.
I know. It's just crazy. But that was one of the things. The other thing is she was supposed to speak at a Sandy Hook charity event, and they told her not to speak because of this interview. Here is part of the interview.
They call you the most paranoid man in America. Is that true?
Absolutely not. A paranoid person will be hiding out in their house, not venturing out in public. I go out there on the street and battle Black Lives Matter, the communists at point-blank range.
We talked controversies and conspiracies.
9/11.
Now, 9/11 was an inside job, but when I say inside job, it means criminal elements in our government working with Saudi Arabia and others wanted to frame Iraq for it. Just a fact.
Sandy Hook.
Well, Sandy Hook's complex because I've had debates where we've devil's advocates said the whole story's true, and then I've had debates where I've said that none of it's true.
When you say parents faked their children's death, people get very angry.
Yeah, well, I know, but they don't get angry about the 500,000 dead Iraqis from the sanctions, or they don't get angry about all the illegals.
That's a dodge.
No, it's not a dodge. The media never covers all the evil wars it's promoted, all the big things.
That doesn't excuse what you did and said about Newtown. You know it.
Here's the difference. I looked at all the angles of Newtown, and I made my statements long before the media even picked up on it. We didn't get any of the really important stuff.
What do you mean? We talked about all
this
the
is the best part.
stuff.
Well, here's the big one they always make fun of. You probably want to throw this in there. 30 years ago, they began creating animal-human hybrids. Isn't that the big story Megyn Kelly should be doing?
Yeah, that's what Megyn Kelly wants to do on her brand new, very expensive primetime show. Animal-human hybrids.
Why didn't I feel bad, Paul, because I did not start the show with the breaking news on animal-human
hybrids. Yeah.
Hybrids.
That's because you're a poor journalist.
What was I thinking? I just don't know. So there you go. He talks about all this stuff, the 9/11 truther stuff.
I don't understand why she's getting such a tough rap about this, because Megyn Kelly's new show, whether you're mad she left Fox or angry she came to NBC, her new show is very 60 minutes-y.
I know.
You know what I mean?
That's what she wanted.
Yeah, she wanted a television magazine show where she could do some very strong interviews, where she wouldn't be forced to talk about the exact same thing every single day, every single hour, all the time, and she could make some big money and she'd be on a network.
And
she got it.
You know what's really amazing about this, too? Not only are the Sandy Hook parents upset, but Alex Jones is upset, too.
Yeah.
He's upset that it's airing. He thinks she took him out of context. I don't know how you take animal-human hybrids out of context. And by the way, he said, he's had recent comments that he's tried to get out of, saying that he believes Sandy Hook was a false flag or whatever. Yeah. Go ahead and play cut 2 for me.
Sandy Hook is a synthetic, completely fake, with actors, in my view, manufactured. I couldn't believe it at first. I knew they had actors there, clearly, but I thought they killed some real kids. And it just shows how bold they are.
Wow.
That they clearly used actors.
This reminds me, did you ever watch that documentary, The Brainwashing of My Dad?
No. Sounds interesting.
Very good documentary. Very Alex Jonesy.
Really?
Yes. Big time.
Oh, I've seen lots of Alex Jonesy stuff, and still people with the 9/11 truther stuff. And
it's so funny to me how, and the documentary I was watching made a good point. Because it was really talking about talk radio and how talk radio and podcasts have started to influence people, specifically older white men who have become a lot more angry, right?
Okay.
But it talked about talk radio as a medium, and it said talk radio is really the only time that you're sitting there listening to somebody all by yourself. Well, you're completely alone when you're listening to talk radio, and it's just you and the other person on the end of that radio talking. And everything they say, you ingest it. And that's what people are doing. That's what people do with him. People who join in on this nonsense, they digest way too much of this stuff. They're the people that are on our Facebook pages all day, every day. We can't post anything about anything without them coming on and telling us how wrong we are. You know, that your shoestrings aren't orange, they're green. I saw a photo of them, you know.
Yes. And, I actually think it's bigger than that. And I want to get to it in the next segment because conspiracy theories fascinate me. The 9/11 truther stuff fascinates me. JFK fascinates me. And I've actually had some personal experience where people accuse me of being a part of some kind of big conspiracy theory.
Yeah, you're part of the Bain Romney machine.
407-916-5400. Do you think Megyn Kelly should be getting all this rap for doing this interview? I don't think so. Because the fact of the matter is Alex Jones is influential. He has a lot of listeners. He has more of a voice than ever because Trump is in the White House. InfoWars has been at press briefings. He's a big deal, and she's really just debunking everything he was saying. So I don't understand. I think a lot of it's more of we're just the culture of outrage, where we just get outraged at everything for every reason, as I've talked about before. So we'll talk more about this, but I want to get into the whole conspiracy theory angle because there are some interesting reasons why I believe they happen and what I believe is actually, reality. So 407-916-5400, text to 23680. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Download the iHeartRadio app and catch the Beyond Reason Radio podcast. The place where we talk faith, culture, and politics. Beyond Reason Radio continues.
Yes, welcome back to the show, everyone. This is another edition of your Voice of Reason in a world that is Beyond Reason. Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee, joined by Paul, who is producing. We were talking about the fact that Megyn Kelly has been getting some flack for having interviewing Alex Jones on her show. A lot of people thought, because of what he said about Sandy Hook being a false, he says it's a false flag, which he's trying to kind of back off from now. No, he said it, and it's stupid. And so we talked about that aspect. I also want to get into the whole conspiracy theory and people's fascinations with conspiracy theories. And it's been going on in this country for a while. Obviously, JFK assassination is the biggest example. But, it goes back to James Garfield's vice president. People were accusing, was it Garfield's vice president? I believe it was. They were accusing him of being born in Canada and not being eligible to be president.
Oh, yeah?
Yes.
Nice.
So when he was shot, they thought, he couldn't be president. I believe it was Garfield. So, this stuff has been going on for the longest time. But let's take a call here real quick. Let's go to Paula in Lake Mary. Paula, how are you today?
Well, I'm just fine. I was just mentioning to your producer that I don't know enough about conspiracy theories to actually comment, although I guess I find them interesting. But you had made a comment about angry men listening to talk radio, and I kind of laughed out loud because I listen to talk radio periodically, and I find myself getting very angry. And I guess because of the fact that maybe the technology we have now, the availability of TV and internet and whatnot, you find out horrible things go on. Maybe they've always gone on. I don't know. But this play in New York depicting the president being assassinated, there were all kinds of I think I just get so upset and so depressed and so horrified at how we treat each other and the hatred and the nastiness, thank you, and the horror. So maybe conspiracy theories spring from that. Maybe people need to find a reason. I don't know.
Well, I think you're onto something with the people need to find a reason. But in terms of the anger, there is no. I mean, sometimes. Okay, I love talk radio too. That's obviously why I do this. I love doing this for a living and everything. But there are definitely the hosts out there who are just always angry,
always mad. Always.
Every show they're angry, and I tend to not listen to it as much after a while because I get sick of the anger too. And I try to make this show a voice of reason. That's why I call it a voice of reason, because I want people to be able to listen to someone and not just get constant anger, but have a real discussion and have a voice of reason throughout all of this noise. But I think, I don't blame talk radio or any kind of media, because media, talk radio, whatever, it's just a tool. It's just a tool of communication. There's obviously things going out there, and sometimes we need to be angry. I'm not saying we should never be angry, and other times we're talking about things that really affect people's daily lives. There's so much at stake.
That's it.
And the things that people talk about, that it's going to fuel a lot of anger and hatred. But I think a lot of it, more of it goes on social media than talk radio, to be honest with you.
I agree, and I'm not mad at the anger person at the talk show host. The anger is at this country, at the people, the hatred. And I guess, like I said, I just never knew it went on, and maybe things have gone on forever. But since we've got internet and we've got all these different media outlets,
we're more aware of it. Well, and I appreciate your call, Paul. I think another thing that fuels it, to be honest with you, is there's such a divide in our culture and in our politics that, you're talking really in half, where the country is divided in half on how we think about very, very big issues. So there's some things we all agree on, but there are some really big issues where we are really divided on the future. And I think that fuels a lot of the anger as well. That's an interesting topic we'll have to get into more in the future. But I also want to talk about this conspiracy theory stuff, because Alex Jones, and it seems to be growing a lot, it goes back to tools, the internet, and everything else, where people are just really into conspiracy theories, where everything is a conspiracy. And, I had a really eye-opening...
It's the government, man.
I had a really eye-opening experience in my life a couple of years ago. My brother lives in Dallas. So while I was visiting him in Dallas a couple of years ago, I went to Dealey Plaza. I went to where JFK was assassinated. They have the 6'4" museum there and all that stuff. You can see where Oswald shot the gun and everything. And I went down to the street level, and I kind of just thought to myself, if I were trying to assassinate the president, which I would never do, obviously, but if I were a sniper, where would I go? And I kind of just looked around and I said, if I were, I'm not an expert at this or anything, but I was thinking, if I were a sniper, where would the best place be for me to go in this situation? And it hit me, probably where he was. Probably out that window in that book depository building. Exactly where he was, exactly what the evidence showed that Oswald shot him from. And it just kind of hit me how, one, if you actually go there and actually experience things firsthand, it can change you. But there's just amazing how many conspiracies, and family members I know, friends I know, believe it was all a conspiracy. And it's amazing how these conspiracies go everywhere with this stuff. And then when you actually go and you actually kind of think rationally and you actually look around and observe, you're kind of like, from just looking at where I am, he probably did it where they said he did it.
Yeah.
And that's probably where it happened. And that's probably the best place you would go to do it. And it's different when you're there because it's not as far up as you would think,
right?
You know, seeing it on video and all that stuff. But that was a really eye-opening experience for me. And then we had people, there was people on the street trying to convince me, oh, it's a conspiracy. Here's the picture of a puff of smoke from the shooter on the grassy knoll. And then another guy was there and he's like, what rifle have you seen creates a puff of smoke? What was he using, a musket? So I was like, yeah, that's a good point. So there's just all kinds of stuff. But, and, you know.
Now, as far as conspiracies go, there is only one that I've yet to be able to rationalize and explain. And that was the Pentagon building.
See, I think it was just what it was. And, you know, and see, this is the other conspiracy theory. And I think all of this boils down, and we'll get into that in a sec, but I think all of this boils down to the fact that we can't rationalize in our minds that somebody, you know, some random guy named Oswald, who's a communist, could do something so massive as kill the president. Or we can't rationalize the fact that some guys with only box cutters.
That was hard to understand because I'm like, you're not taking my plane with box cutters. But I do believe they did it, and I do believe it happened. It's just whenever I look at it, I'm like, but where is it?
Well, it was exploded into dust. Now, I did find out that the Pentagon is actually built with a lot of different things that people don't know, like partly Kevlar.
Oh, okay.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's some stuff with that as well. But in terms of, I think people can't rationalize. They don't want to believe that the world is that chaotic. They don't want to believe that some people with box cutters could do something so massive that changes the future of the country and the world forever. They don't want to believe that one guy who hates the president could assassinate the president like JFK. They don't want to believe that someone would be so crazy that they would kill little kids in an elementary school. They want to believe that that's not possible, that it has to be some kind of big conspiracy thing because it gives them a sense of control.
And not only that, it gives them the sense that, you know, because the new conspiracy theory statement is, what are they distracting you from?
Yeah.
That's the new conspiracy theory statement. Oh, that happened to be a distraction from what's really going on over here, as if we're not able to pay attention to more than one thing at a time.
Yeah, and that, you know? And that we would need something so bad, to have to do that. And it's just, and I think it all goes back to that fact. And oftentimes I tend to believe things are more chaotic than we want to believe.
Yeah, they are.
You know, and I went back to the fact that I've been accused of conspiracies. And I talked about this on the show before. Somebody basically accused me of not talking about something dealing with Obamacare and not calling out the Republicans enough. And he said because I work for the Romney media. The Romney media.
Yeah.
Because Bain Capital, years ago, it was after Romney ever worked for them. It was years after Romney even worked for them, I believe, bought Clear Channel. And somehow I'm being controlled on the things I say because of that. Somehow, in some way, being influenced by that.
Romney slipped you a note, but he wouldn't. But he wouldn't let you interview him.
And it's funny, exactly. And it's funny that if you actually, it's another one of those eye-opening experiences where you actually work in the industry and you actually work and you realize,
yes,
it's the complete opposite.
And that's what I think.
It's a lot more disorganized and a lot more, they're not paying attention to anything.
And that's one of the things I tell people about the media all the time. I've been in radio, I've been in television, I've been all across media. I started out in journalism, in newspapers, and the media is not some puppet machine bias. It is individual people with individual thoughts. And like other individual people, they hire other individual people with like-mindedness.
Yeah. You know Politico had a great article on that recently, how one of the reasons why these certain outlets have biases is, one, their location. They're located in places, and now we're so biased based on where we live.
Absolutely.
And they hire people based on the similar thoughts and all that stuff.
You're more likely to hire somebody that looks and thinks and acts like you because you feel connected to them. And if you're the boss and you feel connected to them, then you want to bring them on board because they're, hey, we're twinsies.
But that's a simple, rational explanation.
That means it's wrong.
Apparently. So that was one conspiracy theory I was accused of. The other one, the first one I was ever accused of that was very eye-opening, was years ago when when Ron Paul was running. We had Rick Santorum on the show when he was running. And somebody called in and accused us of not having Ron Paul on because
I remember that.
Clear Channel said we didn't want us to. We were Clear Channel. We're at iHeartMedia now. And it's like, for one, in the election before, in 2008, this station did have Ron Paul. But we tried to get him on. Of course we would want him on. Why would we not? That would be great, but he didn't want to come on. He didn't want to do any of the conservative talk radio at the time. But they couldn't just believe the simplest explanation.
Yeah.
But then it goes into far where somebody accused me during the Pulse shooting. There's a guy on my Facebook who believes in the Zionist conspiracies and the false flags and all that stuff. And he was saying, Pulse didn't happen. It was a false flag. And I said, I know people that worked at the hospital that saw the victims. I know people that knew people that died. I know people personally affected. You can't tell me that this is some kind of conspiracy now because it happened in my city. And I know people that were affected. And yet he accused me because I work for the media, quote unquote, and I was trying to cover it up because I work for the big bad media. And it's just amazing. The conspiracy theory thing has always fascinated me. And it's all based on people they can't believe. And we don't even believe our own eyes anymore. That's what's even more amazing.
Absolutely not.
Because on 9/11, we saw what happened from every angle. We saw the planes hit the towers. We actually saw it with our own eyes, what happened. And it's not too much of a stretch to see a giant plane hit a tower. It's totally on fire, and then it collapses, and to think, well, maybe that giant plane hitting it, maybe that had something to do with it.
That might have had something to do with it. Maybe. Just maybe.
But we don't want to believe our own eyes.
Oh, and then the fact that the tower was on fire for like an hour before it went down, too. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just... And we're like, no. And then you watch the conspiracy theories and they say, well, you can see a missile come out of the plane right before it hits. And it's like, that makes no sense. Why? There's no reason for a missile to come out right before it hits when it is itself a missile. But then you talk about, well, the Pentagon, and there was witnesses that said a missile hit the Pentagon. So what I did is I went on YouTube and I just searched witnesses of the Pentagon, and there were multiple witnesses that said, I saw a plane hit the Pentagon.
Exactly.
Multiple witnesses. And all you have to do is go search it. And it's there.
Whoa. Time out. Flag on the play. Slow down. Go do what?
Research it.
Go what? I'm sorry.
Yeah. And
you mean I can't just wait for somebody to tell it to me on social media?
And it was just as simple as witnesses of the Pentagon. And they had news reporters out there right after it happened, and they were talking. And one guy literally said, I saw, it was American Airlines, I think, that hit the Pentagon. And he literally said the type of plane it was, and he said he saw it straight. Another guy said, yeah, it was a big jumbo jet that came in and hit the Pentagon. And then you see the street lights falling over.
Yep.
A missile wouldn't.
Wasn't there video of the plane going over a bridge somewhere or something right before it hit?
I don't know about that.
I could have swore I saw something.
I'm not sure about that. So
that'll be the new conspiracy thing.
Yeah, maybe. So, I mean, it's just one of those things that you're not going to get here. And I'm telling you, the world is actually a lot more chaotic and a lot more unorganized, even in media, than you really want, than what these conspiracy theorists want to tell you.
It really is.
407-916-5400, text to 23680. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
If you like Beyond Reason Radio, well, make sure to show it by liking the Facebook page at facebook.com/Beyond Reason Radio. Your voice of truth in a world of fake news. Beyond Reason Radio continues right now.
Welcome back to the show, everyone. This is another edition of Your Voice of Reason in a world that is beyond reason. If you've missed any of the show so far, you can catch the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. On iHeartRadio, you can download the Beyond Reason Radio app. It's on Facebook Live as well. Just like us on Facebook, Beyond Reason Radio. You can follow me on Twitter, by the way, at Beyond Reason are. So I want to get into a subject. This has been kind of a show where, especially the first hour, but we're talking about the important subjects. I know everyone wants to talk about Sessions, I guess. And, yeah, I mean, really, I really didn't.
You guess?
I did not care today about it at all.
Well, there's really, to be honest with you, there's nothing to talk about. He said what we knew he was going to say.
Exactly.
I mean, it's not even as much of something to talk about as Yates or Comey was.
Yeah.
You know, Yates said what we knew she was going to say, but at least she threw a little sizzle in there.
I mean, Comey was the only one that made any sense to talk about.
Exactly.
But
now
I
Sessions
feel
didn't
like
say anything.
We're just beating a dead horse with this stuff, honestly. But, yeah, I feel like, and everyone's talking about it, and I'm like, I don't care. And there are so many things lately where that's my thinking. I don't care. But I found this, and this to me is a really important subject that's not being talked about enough. Mad Dog Mattis, as he's called, which I think is a great name for the Secretary of Defense, to be perfectly honest with you. Did you hear that? Did you hear that statement when he said, when they asked him, what keeps you awake at night? And he goes, nothing. It's my job to keep others awake at night.
Oh, that's great.
I mean,
that is awesome.
I mean,
that is so awesome.
You can't beat that for your Secretary of Defense. He goes, nothing. It's my job to keep others awake at night. I mean, Liam Neeson doesn't have anything on this guy. So I was like, that is the best sound cut I ever played on the show ever was that. But he came out today. Actually, I believe it was yesterday. And he talked about how he's concerned because of sequestration that our military, and said he was pretty shocked by this, is not ready if they really needed them to be ready. That we've been, because of budget cuts, but we've also been kind of complacent because we just think we're America and we're big and bad and nobody can do anything to us. But he said this is not good for the future. And Paul, if you can go ahead and play, I have a cut of Mattis up there. If you can go ahead and play that when he talks about this a little bit here, he talks about how we're not ready.
4 years later, I've returned to the department, and I have been shocked by what I've seen about our readiness to fight. While nothing can compare to the heartache caused by the loss of our troops during these wars, no enemy in the field has done more to harm the combat readiness of our military than sequestration. The fundamental responsibility of our government is to defend the American people, providing for our security, and we cannot defend America and help others if our nation is not both strong and solvent.
So, and it's very interesting to me because this really brings up what is actually one of the core debates our country should be having, but once again is not having. He talked about sequestration and budget cuts affecting our military. And I was someone who supported sequestration because I still feel like one of the biggest threats to the future of this country is the national debt. That really is one of the biggest threats to the future of this country. And we're going to have to cut spending, and most likely we're going to have to cut spending on everything in order to control the national debt. That being said, it can be kind of concerning when the Secretary of Defense says, we're not ready. And then I read this article from the National Review, and actually it was the Heritage Foundation who did the report, about how the Air Force is not ready at all. He's the assessment by the Heritage Foundation pointed out they found only 4 of 36 active duty fighter squadrons in our Air Force are ready for conflict with a near peer competitor, meaning Russia or China or one of those kind of countries. So we have 36 active duty fighter squadrons in our Air Force. And according to this, only 4 out of the 36 are ready. Not only that, but the Air Force has determined that it needs 3,643 fighter pilots. At the end of 2016, it was 873 short of that goal. It said from 1981 to 1990, the average graduation rate for candidates going through basic flight training was 75%. But after 1990, the rate exploded. The graduation rate averaged 91%. The lowest graduation rate was 1991's 85%. It said, but it says, today the average U.S. fighter pilot receives 150 hours of flight time and training each year, and even that low average is inflated by units that deployed to Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan, where threats in the air are rare. Then it goes into the whole point that the fleet itself is old. The average fighter has been in service for well over 25 years. So our average Air Force fighter jet has been in service for over 25 years. And so I always get people that ask me and ask Republicans, why do we need to spend more on military? Why do we need to spend more on military? Because we have the biggest military budget in the world, and it's bigger than any other country. And it's actually a good debate to have. Now, there is a lot of wasted money in military, just like there is in every government program. But when you hear, I just wanted to give some perspective on this, because when you hear how our military is unprepared, and the fact of the matter is, if we're going to cut spending on the military, we have to understand that our role in the world and our military's role in the world is going to be less. So that means if something happens across the world, like Syria gassing their own people, for instance, and we can't cry and say, well, we have to do something about it, because our military because we've decided that we have to cut military spending. But the real debate we need to be having over this then, and what's really caused all of this problem, if our military really isn't ready, is once again the debate over the role of government. It's a debate. It's never about this anymore. It's never. We always talk about spending. We always talk about all of these different things, but it never gets down, boiling it down to, once again, that discussion that nobody wants to talk about anymore, and that's the true role of government. And I want to get into this discussion because it's vitally important when you're talking about this stuff. Because a lot of people say we want to increase the military, but we can't do that and increase all these other programs. So eventually we will have to decide what is our priority. I want to talk more about that after the break. This is Beyond Reason Radio. I'm your host, Michael Yaffee. We'll be right back.
Subscribe to the Beyond Reason podcast today on your Stitcher app and hear the voice of reason anytime. Your safe space for conservative thought, not for political correctness. Yaffee is back right now.
Yes, welcome back to the show, everyone. We've been talking some very important discussions here today. I know I could comment more on, I don't know. Well, what's going on? What does everyone care about today other than Sessions? They care about...
Didn't Obama do something?
Did he? Did he do something today? Yeah.
I'm sure somebody thinks he did.
Yeah, I don't know either. But we talked about the idea of universal basic income earlier in the show. That's a big topic that needs to be discussed. We talked about, the future of the parties. The Democrat Party wants to go more socialist. Some Republicans think, that'll never have a chance. I think the Republicans need to be aware that could be coming. I'm
telling you, man, Republicans are real close to making the same mistake Democrats made over the past few years. Overlooking.
Yeah.
Just overlooking the masses. And as that population bubbles up underneath and you think there's not enough of them and you think they're not big enough and they're not bad enough. I mean, yeah, Trump won, but he sure didn't win by a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely not a mandate.
So...
For sure. So, yeah, you have to, and they need to be aware of that. And they need to be aware of what the youth thinks and why they think that way and how to convince them to vote for liberty and all that stuff. That has to be something that has to be pushed by the party, and it's really not right now.
And you have to remember, every 4 years, there's another 4 years worth of people who can now vote.
Yep, that's a good point. That's a very good point. And then the other subject we were talking about is James Mattis, Secretary of Defense, really worried about the future of our military, saying we're not ready. And then you look at the Air Force and how many of our squadrons are not really prepared if we were ever attacked. You look at the numbers that they want. An active duty Army, for instance, has 476,000 active duty. He says the active component should be between 540,000 and 550,000. And then it goes on. And this goes back because every time this debate comes up, every time you talk about increasing military spending, then you get the left side. It says, well, what about the poor? And what about
that's right
education? And what about the arts? And what about Sesame Street?
That's
and
right.
Would somebody please think of the children? And it goes back to this whole thing. And I think one of the biggest mistakes by so many in our politics today is going back to the debate of the role of government.
You never hear anybody talk about that anymore.
That
used to be the conservative principle.
Yes.
What is the proper role of government? And it's like conservatives have all but abandoned it.
Yeah, because when you say we need to increase military spending, and then the left says we don't have enough money, the argument then to go about it is, you want to cut all these other programs. The argument to go about it is that is not the true role of government, all these other programs. The government is not good at doing all those other things, and that's why we try to get those programs cut. But the military, national security, our defense is one of the true roles of government. It is the main role of our federal government. And I just noticed that this stuff isn't being discussed now. And of course, we're all distracted by everything else. We're all distracted by Jeff Sessions and Russia and collusion and conspiracies and
travel bans.
And all
tweets
that stuff.
And Ivanka. and
Well, I get distracted by her sometimes. I appreciate you listening to the show. I will be back later this week. Make sure to check out the podcast anywhere podcasts are available. I thank Paul for producing as well. And, well, I'll catch you guys next time.